Crushmaster wants to know my best and worst dreams. Unfortunately, I can't remember the best one. So in honor of one of my childhood fears being spawned by a Valentine's Day special, you guys are gonna get a nightmare story. Now I know there are a lot of younger audiences who like to watch these vlogs, so I do have to make a quick warning to the parents. This might get dark. Honestly, it's not much worse than an episode of The Twilight Zone, but those did scare me when I was a kid, so you might want to screen this one before showing it to the younglings. I think... yeah, I'm gonna grab my headset for this one. It was a bright and delightful afternoon. My friend Kyle and I were taking a hike on a mountain near my house. As we climbed the terrain, we noticed something odd just off the path. A 1950 Chevy, parked at the top of the hill. Confused and eager to explore, we step off the path and head off blindly into the hills. After a few short minutes, we come to a strange obstruction in the ground. It's clearly man-made, a cement tunnel with an opening just large enough for us to crawl through. The structure appeared old and was covered in graffiti. This didn't stand out as strange. Kyle and I assumed that this was for the irrigation plant just further up this mountain. But, as our curiosity piqued, we both climbed into the tunnel. The two of us were awestruck by what we discovered. From the outside, the tunnel appeared to end after a few feet, but inside, it was an incredible, expansive room. The ceiling was a large dome of rotting wooden planks, held in place by corroded metal beams. Despite no sunlight entering the room, be it from the ceiling or the tunnel, the room had an unexplained luminance. This place was cool and calm, but with a very eerie undertone. As we both turned to leave, a metal door slams closed over our only exit. A voice whispered through the chamber, "One must stay." Before we had time to collect our thoughts, the door slid open, and we both leapt to our knees to crawl out. I exited first. As I brushed the dirt off my jeans, I turned back to see Kyle is no longer behind me. I bent down to look into the tunnel, where I find that multiple iron bars had appeared after I had escaped, trapping my friend inside. Another voice whispered through the air, and though I can't recall what it said, I knew its rules. By sundown tonight, one of us would be trapped here forever. Ideas raced through my mind. I ran down the mountain to get help, but who would believe me? How can I explain a magic tunnel with iron bars on a wooden dome ceiling? And even then, how can I get him out without sending someone else in? As much as I hated to think about it, someone needed to enter that tunnel. Someone needed to stay trapped inside so that my best friend could escape. But that's cruel. That's inhumane. Kyle is like my brother, but sending someone else into the tunnel when they have a whole life ahead of them? Even he wouldn't allow that. I need someone who isn't as alive. I need someone who is deathly ill. I need a hospital. The next few hours were a blur. I searched the city for a nearby hospital and stole an ambulance in uniform. "I'm here for the patient transfer," I told the nurse, my voice trembling even more than my own legs. This was when I met Audrey, a depressed woman in her 40s with a terminal disease. With a glance over my shoulder, I can see the light fading outside. I don't know how much time I have left, but right now, I have to take what I can get. I wheel Audrey out into the stolen ambulance, and with the sirens blaring, we drive to the far side of the city. Audrey the entire time seemed nervous and was attempting to make small talk. I, on the other hand, was far too focused. The sun was setting. My friend was trapped and scared, and the last thing I need right now was second thoughts about this woman that I'm sending to her own grave. Audrey's talking ceases the moment I pull the ambulance off the road, and behind the rumble of the engine and the gravel beneath us, I can hear her slowly begin to cry next to me. I dared myself not to look. I couldn't let her get to me. I had to save my friend. At last we get to the top of the mountain. I pull off the path and tell Audrey to get out. She slowly reached for the door with a shaky hand. She had no idea where this was going, but she knew it was nowhere good. I step out of the driver's seat and I noticed a small handgun sitting just underneath my chair. I didn't know if this was normal, if ambulances usually came with weapons, or perhaps this handgun had a story of its own to tell. But without a second thought, I take it and put it in my pocket. With my left hand, I grab Audrey's arm and I start leading her down towards the tunnel. I could feel her shaking in fear, though that may have been me. I was scared. I couldn't stand to have her next to me anymore. I couldn't stand to imagine her trapped inside that tunnel for the rest of her life, or how Kyle would react to me trading her life for his. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to save my friend, but I had to save Audrey from her own eventual fate. Without another thought, without a single warning, I quickly pulled the handgun out of my pocket, and with one swift motion I loaded a bullet. I spun my body around to face her, and I shot her point blank right between the eyes. Audrey froze. Her eyes began to roll. A single tear fell from her eye, but was instantly washed away by a line of blood. Her head went limp, and she began to lean to one side. With the gun still in hand, I caught her body before she fell. Then I carried her the short walk to the entrance of the tunnel, where I found Kyle. His eyes were bright red and inflamed, and I could see the look on his face as he put everything together. The uniform, the gunshot, the woman lying dead in my arms. What had I done? "Come on, Kyle, we're getting you out. I need you to pull her inside." I set her down at the entrance of the tunnel, her feet touching the iron bars, but they didn't raise. The sun was almost down. We didn't have time to be gentle. I sat Audrey up, pushing against her back, cramming her lifeless corpse against the iron bars. Still no budge. The whisper returned, this time much louder than before. It startled me and I leapt back, thinking someone was shouting at me, "One must stay." The tunnel did not want a body. It wanted a prisoner. It was in this moment that I recalled the 1950 Chevy back near the path, and now the ambulance that had joined it. We weren't the first to fall victim to this trap. And as I looked down at my weapon, I thought of everything I had done today. Lying, kidnapping, murder. I couldn't leave this mountain. None of us could. I awoke, quickly sitting up in bed, covered in sweat and tears, gasping for breath and praying for mercy. It took me a few minutes to realize it was all but merely a dream. But even now, months later, I still remember my last conscious thought in epic detail. I pulled the trigger. The shot rang for but a moment, and then darkness. I pulled the trigger. The shot rang for but a moment, and then darkness, and then redness, and then whiteness. Peace off.